Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Madam Speaker, this is about infant lives, but I'd like to address what else it's about. It's about science and research. And the other side seems to only want to focus on politics and scare tactics. From the beginning, we recognized the other side would try to divert attention from our investigation by falsely claiming we are opposed to science. As a doctor, I find that offensive, and I think it's a dangerous practice to introduce fear into important scientific debates. Every member of the panel is committed to medical research that finds cures. The rhetoric that we are opposed to cures for Zika or HIV or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's is just ridiculous and wrong. The United States of America is a global leader in scientific research. We should all be proud of the research enterprise in our country and support it with tax dollars. The House panel Republicans on infant lives share this support. We are strongly committed to promoting both basic and clinical research. The goal of the House Select Panel is not to oppose science, but rather to determine how best to support science so that its important work can advance as rapidly as possible without ethical compromise. As the history of biomedical research in the 20th century clearly demonstrates, when scientific research is separated from ethics or the law, grave injustices can occur. We here in Congress, like the rest of Americans, care deeply about protecting the rights of patients and ensuring ethical oversight of research procedures. These are not meant to hinder advances in science, but rather to ensure that the scientific enterprise more perfectly fulfills its promise to society by advancing in a manner that is both just and ethical. Through the panel's investigation, we have discovered inaccuracies about the role of human fetal tissue and have sought to correct them to realistically address the obstacles facing research. Any argument from the 1950s or even the 1990s, for that matter, about biomedical research is outdated, and the actual record is clear. Human fetal tissue did not directly result in a vaccine for diseases like measles. Similarly, the Nobel Prize was not awarded for curing polio using human fetal tissue. In fact, of the 75 vaccines in use today, not one was produced with fetal tissue. Furthermore, the NIH has not funded fetal tissue transplant grants for nearly 10 years. That should tell us something. We examined 30 major grants that were funded by the NIH over the last 5 years and found that human fetal tissue research represents only a tiny fraction of the overall scientific enterprise. In fact, only 0.2% used human fetal tissue. Hysterical calls for enhanced fetal tissue research through expanded abortion's license are a matter of politics, not medicine or science. A small subset of NIH-funded grants uses fetal tissue to study things like birth defects. These types of grants represent only 1 in 100,000. Tissue or cells for these studies could be derived from another source than aborted babies.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Yield 1 additional minute to Mr. Bucshon.
The gentleman from Mississippi yields 1 more minute. The gentleman is recognized.
Tissue or cells for these studies could be derived from another source other than aborted babies, like premature natural demise infants whose parents are willing to donate. The other grants use fetal tissue when alternatives are easily available, like placenta or cord blood or modified adult stem cells. Some grants even study adult macular degeneration. Research on adult macular degeneration should be conducted using adult donor eyes, but these grants are instead using fetal eyes from aborted infants, not because of science, but because of convenience. Mr. Speaker, I know these things can be uncomfortable to discuss, but that's why the other side wants to avoid the facts, and that's why this debate is so important. It's about conducting medical research in an ethical and just manner. So let's sit down and talk science with the NIH and others so that research works for everyone in an ethical and moral way. I yield back.